Ever feel like you're swiping endlessly, going on date after date, and it's just nothing? Like you're stuck in this cycle.
Oh, yeah, I think we've all been there. You're not alone.
Yeah, Sarah from the ebook we talked about, she felt the same way. Like finding love, it's this lottery ticket, pure chance.
It's so easy to think that way, right? Like you'll bump into the one.
Just magically appear.
Yeah, but this deep dive, it's gotta be different. We're looking at Jay Shetty's book, 8 Rules of Love, in his talk with Mel Robbins.
And let me tell you, it's eye-opening. We're not just talking about, understanding love.
Yeah.
It's like rewriting your whole love story.
Totally. You'll come away with tools
Yeah.
to break those old habits, the ones that aren't working, and build something better.
More fulfilling, right? Like, think about this. 4 phases of love.
Oh, and the idea of your partner as a guru?
Right. It's not what you think. Plus, 8 rules, actually doable stuff to change how you approach love. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it. First myth to bust. Love is just a feeling.
Feelings. Remember Mark and Lisa from the book? Total fairy tale romance.
Fireworks, the whole deal.
But it crafted and burned. Shows you how fleeting feelings can be.
It's mistaking that spark, that infatuation for the real thing. Big mistake. Lasting love, it's different.
So, not just a feeling. Then what is it?
Both the book and the interview, they give us a framework. 3 pillars holding love up. First one, liking their personality.
You hang out for hours and actually enjoy it.
Exactly. Jay Shetty talks about the 200-hour rule. It's like building a close friendship. That takes time.
So before you even start the relationship, ask yourself, could I chill with this person that long?
I love that. It's like a compatibility test, but for real life, not just a dating app.
Okay, pillar number 2.
Respecting their values doesn't mean you got to agree on everything.
Right. Like Jay Shetty and his wife, Roddy. Different top values.
Hers is family, his is purpose and service. Different paths.
But the respect, rock solid. That lets them support each other's growth.
Even when they're going in different directions, could you understand and respect their values? Even if they're not your exact match.
Interesting question. And the 3rd pillar.
Commitment to helping them reach their goals. Not the potential you see, not what you wish they wanted, their actual goal.
And you truly in their corner, or just loving the idea of who they could be.
Supporting their journey, not trying to make them into someone else. That's the difference.
So we've got these pillars, but love, it unfolds over time. Right. 4 phases: attraction, dreams, struggle, and trust.
Knowing where you are in that journey, game changer.
Starting with attraction, phase 1, honeymoon phase, butterflies, intense.
Can be deceiving though, right?
Totally. Hormones, idealization. You're seeing the best version.
So how do you know if it's real or just a fling?
Look out for red flags, love bombing, moving too fast, ignoring your boundaries.
Yeah, those are not good signs.
Enjoy the excitement for sure, but stay smart about it. Next up, dreams, phase 2.
The future.
Picturing life together, sharing dreams, building something, hope, excitement. Don't lose yourself in that though.
Exactly. Red flags here. Losing your own view on goals, being afraid to share your true self. Gotta be open.
Communication is key. Makes sense. And then comes the struggle. Phase 3, reality check time.
It's natural. The shine wears off a little. You see flaws, disagreements pop up. It's part of it.
In the interview, Mel Robbins was saying this is actually a phase for growth, individually and as a couple.
You learn to navigate conflict, communicate better, accept imperfections. That's huge.
But there are serious red flags here too, right?
Absolutely. Constant fighting, disrespect, any abuse. Those are signs to step back, get help. Boundaries are crucial.
Good advice. And finally, we reach trust. Phase 4.
That's where the deep stuff takes root. Security, acceptance, resilience. You've been through it together.
Built that foundation.
But it's not just no conflict, right? It's knowing you can handle it. Red flags here. Stagnation, lack of vulnerability.
So you're not growing anymore.
Maybe revisit those dreams, create new experiences together, keep it alive.
These 4 phases, I love how they laid it all out. It helps to know challenges aren't always bad.
Part of the journey. And that brings us to something really interesting from the book.
Oh, you mean your partner as your guru?
That's the one.
I'm so curious about this. What does that even mean?
It's seeing them as a mirror, helping you see yourself more clearly, your patterns, your strengths, where you need to grow.
Not them literally being your teacher.
No, but their presence, how you react to them, it teaches you.
The book had some great examples, like the partner who interrupts all the time.
Instead of just getting mad, ask yourself, why does this bug me so much? Maybe there's something deeper there.
Not blaming them, but using it to understand yourself better. I like that.
In the interview, they made sure to say there's a difference between a true guru partner and someone controlling, abusive.
Big difference.
Huge.
So how do you tell if it's more abuser than guru?
A guru reflects, an abuser projects. A guru supports, an abuser controls. Gurus is compassionate, abuser criticizes. It's about the energy.
That makes it so clear. And if you're always feeling put down, controlled, that's a sign to rethink things, get some support.
Absolutely. A relationship should lift you up, not make you doubt yourself constantly.
So the guru thing, it's about using the relationship to grow. But how do you actually become more self-aware?
They talk about mindfulness, meditation, journaling, even talking to a therapist or someone you trust to get an outside view.
And just taking time to think about your experiences, how you react, what you're creating in the relationship.
It's powerful stuff, seeing the bumps in the road as lessons.
Instead of just getting frustrated all the time.
Exactly. Which brings us to another key idea. Partnership versus ownership. Big shift in thinking.
Okay, I'm listening. Partnership, ownership.
Right.
What's the difference?
Imagine two trees growing side by side. They each got their strong roots, their own branches, reaching for the sky.
Okay, I'm visualizing it.
In a partnership, they support each other, maybe offer shade, shelter, but they're still individuals, growing together, but also on their own.
I like that. What about ownership then?
Now picture a vine clinging onto that tree. Depends on it completely, wraps itself so tight it can actually choke the tree's growth.
Wow, that's kind of intense.
It is. That's ownership in a relationship. One person gets too dependent, too controlling, and the other can't thrive.
So it's about stifling individuality, not supporting it.
Right. The book gets into the specifics. Partnership is about respect, equality, open communication, trust, sharing responsibility.
Ownership is about controlling, manipulating, disrespecting, criticizing, isolating. Not good stuff.
And it often hides behind good intentions, like giving advice that feels like criticism, guilt trips, checking their phone.
Oh yeah, the helpful control stuff. It's sneaky.
Gotta watch for those red flags.
Yeah.
Know people. The interview talked about how damaging this is. You lose yourself, resentment builds up.
Communication falls apart.
Intimacy goes out the window.
So basically, it destroys the whole point of being together. How do you even shift from that ownership to a real partnership?
Honestly, look at yourself first. Are you being controlling? Then learn to speak up about your needs, but respectfully.
I feel statements, right.
That's it. And support their goals, even if you wouldn't choose them for yourself. Celebrate their wins.
Their growth isn't a threat.
Exactly. And working on your own self-esteem outside the relationship, that's huge.
Makes sense. If you're already insecure, you're more likely to cling to control.
Totally. Building your own confidence, that makes the partnership stronger.
This is so insightful. It's about consciously choosing respect, equality, supporting each other's growth.
And speaking of choices, that brings us to Rule 6, the story you're telling.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What story?
It's about how the stories we create about love, based on our past, what we've seen, what society tells us, it shapes our reality.
So we have a love story in our head, and it can either help us find healthy love, or it can totally block it.
Exactly. Both the book and the interview, they say we got to become aware of that story. What do we truly believe about love? What are we expecting? What scares us?
It's like figuring out the script you're living by.
Yeah, and the book talks about how powerful self-fulfilling prophecies are. Believe you're not worthy of love.
You're going to act in ways that prove yourself right. Oof.
It's like we create what we believe. So if the story's negative, gotta rewrite it.
Okay, how do you do that?
They say, identify your biggest limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. Relationships are always hard, that kind of stuff.
We all have them.
Then challenge those beliefs. Ask yourself, is this really true? What evidence do I have? Where did this even come from?
Love that. You're basically putting your beliefs on trial.
Exactly. Then you build a new W story. One that's positive, hopeful, but also realistic. A story about growth and being kind to yourself.
So it aligns with what you actually want deep down.
They give examples like, I am worthy of love and respect. I can build a healthy relationship. I learn and grow from every experience, that kind of stuff.
You're basically rewriting the script of your love life.
You got it. They even say, write it down, read it out loud, really picture yourself living it.
Wow. It's about going from passively waiting for love to actively creating it. I love that.
It's super empowering, recognizing you have that power.
Okay, so we've covered self-love, awareness, rewriting the story. Now for something maybe surprising. Rule 7, solitude.
The strength of being alone. In a world obsessed with connection, this one stands out.
It does seem a bit counterintuitive, but I'm ready to hear more.
It's about embracing those quiet times, being with yourself, not as a weakness, but as a way to recharge, to get to know yourself better.
It's like in a world that's always go, 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 remembering to just be.
And it's not about loneliness. It's about choosing to be alone and finding strength in that.
Right. There's a big difference between feeling lonely and enjoying solitude.
Huge difference. And the benefits. Increased self-awareness, more creativity, less stress.
You even become better at connecting with others because you're more connected to yourself.
It's like a paradox, but it's true. You got to fill your own cup first.
But for a lot of people, being alone is scary. They don't know what to do with themselves.
The book has tips. Start small. Find things you enjoy doing solo. Disconnect from technology. Be kind to yourself in the process.
It's like learning to be your own best company.
And at the end of the day, solitude. It's about building that loving relationship with yourself. That's the foundation for everything else.
Love that. You can't truly give to others if you're running on empty.
Exactly. Which brings us to Rule 8, breaking the cycle. Overcoming those patterns from the past that trip us up.
Oh, this is a big one. We all have baggage.
We do. This rule is about seeing how our past, especially childhood, shapes how we love now.
Our beliefs, expectations, how we attach to people.
Sometimes those patterns are healthy. Sometimes they sabotage us. Got to figure out which is which.
So it's about becoming aware of those patterns and then breaking free.
It starts with those early experiences with our parents, caregivers.
They talk about attachment styles in the book. Secure, anxious, avoidant. All those variations.
Knowing your style, it's like having a map. Helps you understand why you react the way you do in relationships.
And beyond that, there's other stuff from childhood that impacts us.
Definitely. Seeing your parents fight, emotional neglect, trauma, even sibling dynamics play a role. It's all connected.
Fascinating how that stuff sticks with us.
It does. So how do we break free? First, see the patterns. What themes keep popping up in your relationships? What roles do you play? What triggers you?
It's like becoming a detective of your own love life.
Exactly. And there's this cool framework they talk about, gifts and gaps.
Gifts and gaps, what's that?
Gifts are the good stuff from childhood, the things that made you strong. Gaps are the unmet needs, the wounds.
I like that. Acknowledging both the good and the bad.
It's about seeing the whole picture. Then you can start to heal, to choose differently.
So once you see the pattern, what do you do about it?
They give a bunch of ideas: therapy, mindfulness, challenging those negative beliefs you've been carrying.
Learning to communicate better, setting boundaries, being kinder to yourself.
And forgiveness, huge G one, both for yourself and D, those who hurt you.
Holding on to anger and resentment just keeps you stuck.
Exactly. Forgiveness is about letting go, making space for something new.
They even talk about picking one pattern you want to change, figuring out where it came from, and consciously trying a different response next time it pops up.
It's about taking control. You're not doomed to repeat the past. You have a choice.
So empowering. We're not just victims of our childhoods. We can actually change the course.
Totally. Which brings us to the last rule, but definitely not least. This one's about the foundation of any good relationship. Communication.
Okay, here we go. Communication, the lifeline of love.
It's more than just talking. It's about really connecting, understanding each other.
And they go deep, right? It's not just, oh, talk more.
They break it down. It's what you say, how you say it, when you say it, and most importantly, how well you listen.
That's something we could all work on.
For sure. And they talk about the different layers of communication: words, body language, emotions, the context.
It gets complicated.
It does. And when those layers don't line up, that's where the trouble starts. Like saying, I'm fine with a frown and your arms crossed.
Your body's telling a different story.
Exactly. And they talk about what happens when communication's bad. Arguing all the time, shutting down, criticizing.
Selling eggshells.
Yeah, that stuff creates a toxic environment, kills trust, intimacy, respect. It can really break a relationship.
No one wants that. So they emphasize building healthy skills, starting with active listening.
What does it really mean to listen? Pay attention. Put your phone down, make eye contact, reflect back what you hear.
Showing you're truly present, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
And not interrupting, validating their feelings even if you disagree, not judging, creating a safe space.
It's a skill for sure.
Takes practice, but we can all get better at it.
They also talk about this interesting framework, nonviolent communication.
Oh yeah, NVC. It's all about compassion, not blame.
Sounds kind of like what we were talking about with the guru partner.
There are similarities for sure. It's about understanding each other's needs, Speaking your truth, but in a way that connects, not attacks.
So less, you always do this,
Ish.
and more, I feel this way when.
Exactly. And being honest about your feelings, even the tough ones. That takes courage, especially if you've been hurt before.
Building trust takes time.
It does. They suggest starting small, sharing things gradually, being mindful of each other's emotional state. It's a dance.
And at the end of the day, communication is a two-way street.
Absolutely. Expressing yourself, but also truly listening to the other person, creating that back and forth.
Wow, this has been so insightful. It's like a whole toolbox for communicating better, building stronger connection.
That's the power of these 8 rules. They give you practical steps you can actually use.
Not just vague advice.
And you know what struck me? How simple they are, but also how deep.
Yeah, it's not about complicated theories. It's about how we show up every day in our relationships. And that's what we're going to dive into next. We're going to take each of those 8 rules and really unpack them with examples, stories, practical tips you can use. Ready for part 2?
Let's do it. So we dove deep into communication last time, but I keep thinking about those 8 rules themselves. So simple, but so much there.
I know, right? Jay Shetty, he really boils it down. And the best part, it's not just for romantic love, friendships, family, even how we treat ourselves.
It all applies. It's like a framework for more love, period. More connection, more fulfillment, across the board.
Exactly. So let's break it down, rule by rule. Starting with that first one, let yourself be alone.
It sounds counterintuitive, right? Especially these days when everyone's telling you to put yourself out there, find someone.
Like being single is some kind of failure. But the book, it flips that on its head. Solitude, it's not the enemy, it's the foundation.
You can't build a strong house on shaky ground.
Yeah.
Right? Same with relationships. Got to start with yourself.
And Jay Shetty, he talks about how so many people are looking for love from this place of fear.
Fear of being alone, fear of not being good enough. It's almost like desperation.
And ironically, that's what pushes love away. You're trying to fill a hole with someone else instead of realizing you're already whole.
It's so true. And he makes this distinction between loneliness, which is painful, isolating, and solitude.
Which is a choice.
Exactly. You're choosing to be with yourself and finding that space to grow, to discover who you are, what you really want.
And then, when you're ready to connect with someone else, you're coming from a stronger place.
You're not relying on them to complete you because you're already complete.
It reminds me of that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
So true. You got to fill yourself up first. Which brings us to rule 2. Don't ignore your karma.
Now, when people hear karma, they think of it as like punishment or cosmic payback.
Right, like you do something bad happens to you. But Jay Shetty's take is way more nuanced.
He's not talking about some mystical force. It's more about self-awareness.
It's the energy you put out into the world. Actions, words, thoughts. It all comes back around.
Not in some spooky way, but just naturally. What you focus on expands. You treat people poorly, you're going to attract that energy back.
It's like a boomerang.
Yeah.
And this applies to love big time. He says, look at your patterns, your baggage. What are you bringing into your relationships?
Unresolved stuff from the past, childhood wounds, old relationship traumas. They can create this kind of negative karma.
It's like you're carrying around all this weight, and it prevents you from being fully open, fully present with someone else.
Do you remember that exercise in the book, the Younger Self Meditation?
Oh, that was powerful.
You picture meeting your 13-year-old self.
The one who's hurting, confused.
And you offered them the love and support they needed back then. It's like healing that inner child.
It's beautiful. And by doing that, you're shifting the energy, not just for yourself, but for your relationships too.
So it's not about blaming the past. It's about using it to become more aware, more conscious.
And creating a better present. Which leads us to rule 3. Make love a daily practice. This one really hit home for me.
Me too. It's like so often we think of love as this big dramatic thing, falling head over heels, grand gestures.
But real love, it's in the everyday stuff.
It's the small, consistent actions that show you care. Not just on Valentine's Day, but all the time.
Exactly. He talks about creating daily rituals that nourish your heart, your connection with your partner, saying thank you, giving compliments, really listening.
Even just making eye contact and smiling.
Yeah.
It's about being present, being intentional.
And it's not about spending tons of money. It's about those little gestures that say, I see you, I appreciate you.
Like making them coffee in the morning or leaving a sweet note. Simple things, but they make a difference.
And he applies this to self-love too, treating yourself with that same kindness and care.
Eating well, moving your body, doing things that bring you joy, it's all connected.
It is. You can't give what you don't have. Got to fill yourself up first. And that takes us to rule 4, which we touched on earlier. Your partner is your guru.
This one can be tricky, right? It's not about putting your partner on a pedestal or thinking they're always right.
It's about seeing them as a mirror, reflecting back to you your own patterns, your strengths, your blind spots.
The things you might not see so easily on your own.
He gives that example of the partner who always interrupts. Instead of just getting frustrated, ask yourself, why does this bug me so much?
Maybe it's triggering some insecurity, some old wound about not being heard.
Exactly. Use it as an opportunity to learn about yourself.
And he makes it really clear. This only works if it's a true guru relationship, not one that's abusive or controlling.
There's a big difference. A guru reflects, an abuser projects. A guru supports, an abuser controls.
It's about the energy, the intention behind it. And if you're always feeling put down, criticized, like you can't do anything right, that's not a guru.
That's a red flag. Got to get out of that situation.
But if it's a healthy dynamic, the partner is guru, it can be incredibly powerful for growth.
It is. They're showing you things about yourself you might never have seen otherwise.
And he gives tips for cultivating that self-awareness. Meditation, journaling, talking to a therapist.
Even just taking some quiet time to reflect on your experiences, your reactions. Why did I get so triggered by that? What's that about?
It's fascinating work. And it takes us to rule 5, which is another big shift in perspective. Choose partnership over ownership.
This one's about recognizing the difference between a relationship that's based on mutual respect and support and one that's more about control and possession.
Like you're not trying to own the other person, you're walking alongside them.
He uses this great visual. Imagine 2 trees growing side by side. They each have their strong roots, their own branches reaching for the sky.
Beautiful image. And they're supporting each other, but they're still their own trees.
Exactly. And that's what partnership is about. Respecting each other's individuality, supporting each other's growth, but not trying to control or change them.
And he contrasts that with the image of a vine clinging to a tree, depending on it completely, maybe even choking its growth.
That's the ownership dynamic. One person's trying to control the other to mold them into what they want them to be.
And it can be so subtle, right? It's not always obvious abuse.
It can hide behind good intentions. I just want what's best for you. Or let me help you with that.
But underneath, it's about power. And the book lays out the differences really clearly. Partnership is about equality, open communication, trust, sharing responsibility.
Ownership is about controlling, manipulating, disrespecting, isolating. It's toxic.
And the interview really emphasized how damaging that can be. You lose yourself, resentment builds up, communication breaks down, it destroys intimacy.
It creates a lose-lose situation. So how do you shift from ownership to partnership? First, you've got to look at yourself. Are you being controlling?
Ouch. That's a tough question, but necessary.
Then it's about learning to communicate your needs directly, but respectfully. Using I statements, listening to their perspective, being willing to compromise.
And a big one, supporting their goals, even if you wouldn't choose them yourself.
Their dreams are not a threat to you. Their success is your success. And working on your own self-esteem outside of the relationship, that's crucial.
If you're coming from a place of insecurity, it's so easy to fall into those ownership patterns.
So true. Build yourself up first. That's the best foundation for a healthy partnership. Which takes us to rule 6, rewriting your love story.
This one is about realizing that we all have this internal narrative about love, this story we've been telling ourselves. And it can either help us find true love or it can sabotage us completely.
We've been conditioned by movies, by society, by our families. We have all these ideas about what love should look like, how it should feel.
And sometimes those ideas are completely unrealistic.
Like, I need to find my soulmate and then everything will be perfect.
Or love should be effortless, and if we argue, it means we're not meant to be.
Those kind of beliefs will set you up for disappointment every time. Real love, it's messy, it's work, it's about choosing each other every day.
So this rule is about becoming aware of the story you're telling yourself and then rewriting it.
Exactly. Identifying the limiting beliefs that are holding you back.
Like, I'm not good enough, or I'll always end up getting hurt.
And then challenge those beliefs. Ask yourself, is this really true? What evidence do I have? Where did this belief come from?
You're basically putting your beliefs on trial.
And then you start building a new story, one that's more positive, more empowering, more aligned with what you truly want.
And they have some great examples in the book. Affirmations like, I am worthy of love and respect. I am capable of building a healthy relationship.
And I learn and grow from every experience. That's a powerful one.
It's about shifting your mindset from victim to creator. You're not just at the mercy of fate. You have the power to create the love you want.
And they even suggest writing down your new love story, reading it out loud, visualizing yourself living it. It's about making it real.
This one's all about taking ownership, which brings us to rule 7, solitude, the strength of being alone. This one can be tough for people, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with messages about connection and finding the one.
It's like being alone is somehow a bad thing. But Jay Shetty, he flips that on its head. He says solitude is essential. It's where you recharge, where you connect with yourself, where you find your strength.
And it's not about loneliness. It's about choosing to be alone and finding that space to just be.
There's a huge difference. Loneliness is painful. It's isolating. Solitude is nourishing. It's empowering.
And the benefits are incredible. Increased self-awareness, more creativity, less stress.
Yeah.
You even become a better partner, friend, human being.
It sounds paradoxical, but it's true. You got to fill your own cup first.
And he acknowledges that for a lot of people, being alone is scary. They don't know what to do with themselves. So he offers some tips. Start small, find activities you enjoy doing solo, disconnect from technology.
And be kind to yourself. It's a process.
It's like learning to be your own best company. And at the end of the day, solitude is about building that loving relationship with yourself. That's the foundation for everything else.
Absolutely. Which brings us to rule 8, breaking the cycle, overcoming past patterns. This one's about understanding how our past experiences, especially from childhood, can shape our present relationships.
We all have baggage, right? We all have those patterns that we keep repeating.
And sometimes those patterns are healthy, sometimes they're sabotaging us.
So this rule is about becoming aware of those patterns and then consciously choosing to break free.
It starts with understanding where those patterns came from, our early experiences with our parents or caregivers.
He talks about attachment styles in the book, how those early relationships can create a blueprint for how we love and connect as adults.
And there's also other stuff from childhood that impacts us, right? Seeing your parents fight, emotional neglect, trauma, it all plays a role.
It's amazing how those early experiences can have such a lasting impact.
So how do we break free? First, gotta see the patterns. What themes keep popping up in your relationships? What roles do you play? What triggers you?
It's like becoming a detective of your own love life.
And there's this great framework they talk about called gifts and gaps.
Gifts and gaps. I like that.
Gifts are the good stuff from childhood, the things that made you strong. Gaps are the unmet needs, the wounds.
It's about seeing the whole picture.
And then you can start to heal, to choose differently.
So once you see the pattern, what do you do about it?
They offer a bunch of ideas. Therapy, mindfulness, challenging those negative beliefs you've been carrying, learning to communicate better, setting boundaries, being kinder to yourself.
And forgiveness, that's a big one. Forgiving yourself, forgiving those who hurt you.
Holding on to anger and resentment, it just keeps you stuck. Forgiveness is about letting go, creating space for something new.
It's about taking control of your narrative, realizing you're not doomed to repeat the past.
And that leads us to the last rule, which is all about that foundation of any healthy relationship.
Communication.
Communication. The lifeline of love. It's more than just talking. It's about really connecting, understanding each other on a deeper level. And they go deep, right? It's not just talk more. It's about understanding the nuances, the different layers of communication.
Words, body language, emotions. It can get complicated.
It can. And when those layers don't line up, that's where the trouble starts.
Like saying, I'm fine, but with a frown and your arms crossed.
Your body's telling a different story.
And they talk about the consequences of poor communication. All that arguing, the shutting down, the criticizing, the walking on eggshells.
It creates a toxic environment, kills trust, intimacy, respect.
It can literally break a relationship. So they emphasize building healthy communication skills, starting with active listening.
What does it really mean to listen? Paying attention, putting your phone down, making eye contact, reflecting back what you hear.
It's about showing you're truly present, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Not interrupting, validating their feelings even if you disagree, not judging, creating a safe space.
It's a skill for sure.
Takes practice, but we can all get better at it.
And they talk about this framework, nonviolent communication, NVC.
It's all about compassion, not blame. Understanding each other's needs, speaking your truth, but in a way that connects, not attacks.
Less, you always do this, and more, I feel this way when.
Exactly. And being willing to be vulnerable, to share your true feelings, even the messy ones.
That can be hard, especially if you've been hurt before.
It takes courage, but that's where the real intimacy comes from.
And remember, communication's a two-way street. It's about expressing yourself, but also truly listening to the other person, creating that back and forth flow.
It's a dance, and when you get it right, it's beautiful. It really is. And going back through all this, it just highlights how much power we have when it comes to love.
It's not this mysterious force that just happens to us. We have a say in it.
We do. Jay Shetty, he gives us a roadmap, you know, 8 clear steps we can take.
So let's recap those for everyone listening, starting with rule 1, let yourself be alone.
Embracing that solitude, building that solid base of self-love.
You can't pour from an empty cup, right? Got to fill yourself up first.
Then rule 2, don't ignore your karma. It's about seeing the energy you're bringing into your relationships, those old wounds, those patterns.
Healing that stuff so you can create something healthier.
And then rule 3, a good reminder, love is a daily practice.
Not just grand gestures, but those little things, day after day, those add up.
Showing up for yourself, for your partner, for the people you care about.
Okay, then there's rule 4, your partner is your guru.
This one's about using the relationship to grow, to see yourself more clearly.
Your partner's like a mirror, reflecting back those things you might miss on your own.
But remember, it only works if it's a healthy dynamic. There's a big difference between a guru and an abuser.
Absolutely. And rule 5, choose partnership over ownership. That's about creating a relationship based on equality, respect.
Supporting each other's dreams, not trying to control or possess each other.
Then we have rule 6, rewriting your love story.
So powerful. Challenging those old beliefs, those limiting stories we tell ourselves.
And creating a new narrative, one that's more positive, more empowering.
Then there's rule 7, which ties back to that self-love piece. Solitude, the strength of being alone.
It's countercultural, for sure, but so important. Finding that space to connect with yourself, to recharge.
And finally, rule 8, breaking the cycle. Overcoming past patterns.
This one's about understanding how our past experiences, especially from childhood, shape how we love today.
And then using that knowledge to break free from those unhealthy patterns.
It's a lot to take in, but I think what's so inspiring about all of this is that it gives us hope.
It does. It's not about waiting for love to magically happen. It's about taking action.
Becoming more self-aware, choosing differently, practicing those skills.
And one of my favorite takeaways, this idea that the greatest act of love is loving someone so much they learn to love themselves.
That's beautiful. It's about empowering the people we care about to see their own worth, their own beauty.
And ultimately, isn't that what we all want? To love and be loved fully and freely.
That's it for today's deep dive into Jay Shetty's 8 Rules of Love. I hope you found these insights as valuable as we did.
And remember, mastering love, it's a journey, not a destination. It's about showing up every day with an open heart and a willingness to learn.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more explorations into thought-provoking topics. Until next time, keep diving.